He looked back down over his shoulder. Below, an Algerian looked up as he swept metal filings from the floor, then turned away. Salome felt the sweat form on his face, then turn cold in the concrete and steel chill of the factory. He wiped his forehead with his sleeve, then lowered himself between two stringers into the rear of the partially skinned aluminum fuselage. The tail section was a maze of laser-welded struts and curved braces. His feet rested on the supporting crossmembers directly over the number 11 trim tank. He crouched down and crab-walked from strut to strut toward the half-finished pressure bulkhead. Salome peered over the bulkhead and looked down the length of the cavernous fuselage. 6 men walked over the temporary plywood floors, laying bats of insulation between the passenger cabin and the baggage compartment in the belly of the craft. They alternately lifted the plywood, laid the bats, then placed the plywood back between the struts and beams. Salome noticed that, along with the insulation, the men were laying sections of honeycombed porcelain and nylon armor. Overhead, fluorescent work lights were strung along the top of the cabin. There was a light strung into the tail also, but Salome did not turn it on. He crouched for a few minutes in the darkness of the tail section behind the half-finished bulkhead. At length, Nouri Salome cleared his throat and called into the cabin, "Inspector Laval." A tall Frenchman turned from the emergency door which he had been examining and walked toward the chest-high wall. He smiled in recognition at the Algerian. "Salome, why are you hiding like a rat in the darkness?" The Algerian forced an answering smile. He waved the clipboard at the structure's inspector. "It is ready to be closed up, no?" Henri Laval leaned over the bulkhead. He shined his high-intensity light into the tapering tail section and made a cursory inspection. He took the clipboard from the Arab with his other hand and flipped the pages quickly. You could not trust these Algerians to read the schedules of inspection correctly. Inspector Laval checked each page again. Each inspector had made his mark. The electrical, hydraulic, and fuel tank inspection marks were in order. He rechecked his own structure's inspection marks. "Yes, all the inspections have been accomplished," he answered. "And my electrical?" asked Salome. Yes, you did fine. It is complete. It can be closed up." He handed the clipboard back to the Algerian, bade him good night, and turned away. "Thank you, Inspector." Salome hooked the clipboard onto his belt, turned, and made his way carefully in a crouch over the beamwork. He looked surreptitiously over his shoulder as he moved. Inspector Laval was gone. Salome could hear the insulators packing their tools, climbing out of the fuselage and down the scaffolding. Someone shut most of the work lights off in the cabin, and the tail section grew darker. Nouri Salome turned on his flashlight and pointed it up into the hollow tail. He climbed slowly up the strutwork until he could almost touch the point where the two sides of the tail met. From one of his bulging side pockets, he removed a black electrical box, no larger than a packet of cigarettes. The box had a metal parts number plate on it that identified it as SFNEA number CD 326521, which it was not. From his top pocket, he took a tube of epoxy and squeezed the glue onto an aluminum plate, then pressed the box firmly against the side of the plane and held it for a few seconds. He then pulled the telescoping antenna from the black box and rotated it until it was clear of the metal sides of the tail. He shifted his position quietly and braced his back against a strut and his feet against a crossbar. It was not warm in the confining tail, but sweat formed on his face. With an electrical knife, he stripped a section of insulation from a green wire with black hatch marks that led to the tail navigation light. He pulled the length of matching wire from his pocket. On the end of the wire was attached a small, bare metal cylinder the size of a Gauloise cigarette. The other end was bare copper wire. He spliced the copper end onto the navigation light wire and taped the splice carefully. Salome began slowly climbing down the framework. As he descended, he ran the green wire along a bundle of multicolored wires until he reached the bottom of the fin where it joined with the fuselage. He let the wire